Today on my drive, I answer a Twitter question. And predictions. Must be a pay-per-view weekend. Today on the go-home spot. Welcome to the go-home spot, part of the Wrasslun show network. And the only thing that might possibly keep me awake on my drive home from work. I'm Jeff DeHaan, and it's going to be a big one this week. Lots of predictions, TakeOver Brooklyn 3, SummerSlam, plus I got the news. A couple things I want to get to first. Today, being Friday as of this recording, Southpaw Regional Wrestling made its return to YouTube. Unfortunately, because I work today, I have yet to watch it. It's probably going to be one of the first things I do when I get home. Keep your eyes peeled to the Wrasslun Show Network. Maybe might see a review or something coming. We'll see about that. But I'm excited. The first one really kind of took people by storm. I honestly don't think the guys making it, guys and girls I should say, I should discriminate, making it didn't realize that it was going to catch on the way that it did. You can tell a lot of that first series was improvised. It was just the guys and girls goofing around. So it'll be interesting to see if they keep that same vibe for the second series. I hope so. Like I said, I had a lot of fun with the first one, but we'll see. Before I get to the news for the week, we had a question on Twitter. Actually, the Wrasslun Show Twitter tweeted out if anybody had any questions for any of the shows, and Greg, that's all his name was, it was Greg, there was no last name, at GJohns with Z, asked the question, how would we book Paige's return? And at first, I had no idea. But I started thinking about it, and ideas started flowing so much so that I probably don't even have time to go through everything that I thought of at the time. So I'll try to make it quick. The way I see it, Naomi's still champion. She's coming out to the ring on SmackDown for a match. It doesn't matter who it's against because she doesn't actually make it to the ring. She's doing her whole glow shtick, and then all of a sudden she just gets knocked over out of nowhere, just blindsided, and we just see the lights from her hair, her boots, her gear, the belt, everything just go careening to the side. The lights quickly come on because obviously, if you're going by kayfabe, the crew behind the lighting realize obviously something's wrong, so the lights come up, and we see Paige just stomping the crap out of Naomi. Now, Paige might have to wear like some leggings and maybe like a hoodie or something because Naomi's entrance relies a lot on black light, and Paige, bless her heart, is really, really pale. So if she had like, her arms showing or something, it might be pretty easy to see her coming with the black lights. So maybe she's a little covered up at first, but either way, she's beating down Naomi, and she just doesn't stop. Eventually, a bunch of referees and officials like Road Agents, Road Dogg, Joey Mercury, guys like that come and like pull her off and check on Naomi, make sure she's okay and everything. Later on in the night, Daniel Bryan tracks down Paige backstage, starts reaming her out like, why'd you do that? It's not why I brought you back here, this and that. And she just gives him this death glare, doesn't say a word, and walks away. So that's one of the things I liked about Paige. As much as I liked cheering for Paige, I thought she was a really good heel as well. she has a real vicious streak when she wants to. So I like her as a heel as well. And while she was beating down Naomi, she could even, say something like, "This is still my house," because that was one of the big things with her heel run, was whenever AJ Lee came back, and while she was beating down AJ, she was like, "It's my house now." That was kind of one of those catchphrases she was sort of known for. And then she just starts getting booked against mostly baby faces. She's beating them down. I realize it's going to be tricky when you have women like Charlotte and Becky Lynch in there, but I really want Paige to seem tough. I realize she'd be more of a veteran and kind of a natty sort of role, but for this instance, she's kind of mowing down the competition. At the same time, she's a heel and wouldn't be against cheating whatsoever. Possibly kind of akin to maybe when Austin had his heel run after WrestleMania 17. Or maybe even like when Punk had his heel run as well. Someone who can take care of business in the ring, but also isn't afraid to cheat if they have to. That's how I would have her debut, or return, I should say. And she'd wind up getting the title from Naomi. I like Naomi and everything, but that's who I would see taking the title from her if Paige were to come back. I've got this whole other storyline involving James Ellsworth and Carmella and a cash-in and everything, but like I said, it's a stacked show this week, so I've got to get on to other things. But Greg, thank you very much for your question. It's something I hadn't actually given a lot of thought about. I just kind of assumed with the controversy that Paige has been surrounded with lately, and don't get me wrong, a great deal of it wasn't her fault, but due to the controversy kind of surrounding her, I wasn't sure if WWE is really going to want her to come back, or if they're just waiting for her contract to run out and cutting their losses. So this gave me something to think about, and I'm actually a little bit excited if Paige makes a return now. So Greg, thank you very much. If you're like Greg, if you have a question for the Go Home Spot or any of the shows in the Wrasslun Show Network, you can hit up any of us on Twitter. Each show has its own Twitter, which is simply @ and the show name. Ropes to Reels, the Wrasslun Show, we have till 5. Pretty straightforward. Plus, everybody's got their own Twitter handles. And there's also the Wrasslun Show Network's Facebook page. So there's a ton of ways for you to get a hold of us. If you have a question, let us know. We'd all love to answer it on the show. After all, we're all fans. We're all here to talk about the same thing, and that's wrestling. I'm going to get to more of the news right after this.
Hey, it's Adam Conta.
Hey, I'm Drew Ferris.
We came up with the idea for this show, Ropes to Reels, where we talk about movies that have something to do with wrestling.
Could be anything. Could be the story. Could be the plot. Could be one of the executive producers. It's just got to rope around somehow to professional wrestling.
We're going to review everything from the Scorpion King to Ready to Rumble.
From The Wrestler to Scooby-Doo WrestleMania Mystery.
So grab your popcorn
and put on your elbow pads.
And join us in the theater of the mind every week for Ropes to Reels.
Streaming now on the Wrasslun Show Network.
A little light on the news this week, heading into the pay-per-views. Mostly because a lot of the stuff that I probably would have talked about with the weekly shows, I'll wind up talking about when I go through the cards on the pay-per-views. But we'll start off with a little bit of Raw. Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose, the way this whole story has been going, they still didn't trust each other. They're in the ring arguing. They finally start brawling. And it was literally that, brawling. Like, there was very few moves. It was literally just rolling around, punching each other, until Sheamus and Cesaro decided to pounce on the opportunity, and they came down to the ring and started beating on Seth and Dean. Seth and Dean fought back, tossed them both out of the ring, and in perfect timing, they both jutted their hands out together in the Shield fist bump pose. So finally, Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose are on the same page. I think it's cool, but at the same time, as much of a Shield fan as I am, and I really am, they're one of my favorite factions of all time, it's not really a Shield reunion unless the big dog's there. As much as a lot of people might hate Roman Reigns, it's not the Shield without him. So until Reigns struts down to the ring and throws his fist in there with Rollins and Ambrose, it's not really a Shield reunion. But that's just me. Nia Jax and Sasha Banks, the winners of the two triple threat matches from last week, fought to see who was going to move on to SummerSlam to take on Alexa Bliss. And Sasha Banks managed to come out on top. Another great match from these two. I'm not even upset that Nia Jax lost. I expected it. Although this is the second, maybe third time, at least the second time, that Nia Jax has tapped out to Sasha Banks. Now, I realize we want the Banks statement to look like a vicious submission hold, but at the same time, Nia Jax is supposed to be a beast here. It's a lot more believable that she could maybe, run into the post or a bare turnbuckle where the pad's been removed or something that would knock her senseless enough for Sasha to get the 1, 2, 3 as opposed to her tapping out. I'm not disappointed necessarily. I just think there could have been other ways maybe around it. That being said, I do think Nia still looked fairly strong here. I don't think tapping out hurt her too much, but still, there's other ways. It could have even been a count out or something like that. I know that might have seemed like a cop out, but Banks still would have got the win and still would have made it into the match with Alexa Bliss. Finn Balor took on Bray Wyatt on Monday Night Raw, which seemed to defeat the purpose of them having a match at SummerSlam, but apparently they still will. This was a good match, though. Don't get me wrong. I liked it. Bray won and seemed to win more or less clean. He crotched Balor on the top rope and then managed to hit him with Sister Abigail. So, I mean, it's not like it was a low blow, so you can't really say he cheated. So it's the same as Aiden English from a couple of weeks ago when he used the tights to roll over Sami Zayn, but he didn't actually hold the tights during the 3 count. So Bray Wyatt more or less won clean here. So you'd think this feud would be done. But then after the match, Bray Wyatt had some sort of bucket and proceeded to pour what looked like blood all over Finn Balor. Finn sold this very well. He looked utterly disgusted. And afterwards, evidently went to Kurt Angle and got a match against Bray Wyatt at SummerSlam. Now, being that Bray Wyatt won this match, it's pretty much a safe bet that he's going to lose the big one. That's usually what happens with Wyatt. It's why I don't get excited about any kind of angles that he's in anymore. We had a Cruiserweight Championship match on Monday Night Raw. Akira Tozawa took on the king of the Cruiserweights, Neville. Good match, and finally, the power of Tozawa came through. I'm amazed. Neville finally lost the Cruiserweight Championship. I don't even remember. I'll have to look it up. I don't remember how long he had it, but it was a good long time. It probably seems longer than it actually was, considering the Cruiserweight title was really hot potatoed for the first little bit that it was around. Like after TJP and then Brian Kendrick, I think Rich Swann had it. So there was a few guys in there that had it over a short span of time, and then all of a sudden Neville had it and just never lost it. That's more or less it for Monday Night Raw. I had a bit of a face-to-face with Brock, Joe, Roman, and Braun heading into that main event. It got down to Braun Strowman and Brock Lesnar in the ring when things started to devolve. But security and wrestlers split them up a lot, so chances are we're going to see those two tangle at some point during the Fatal 4-Way. Joe and Roman will probably take a powder, and we'll have just the two big men one-on-one in the ring. looking at SmackDown, Natalya got a much-needed win heading into her Women's Championship match against Becky Lynch. Good match. Both did very well. I'm a little disappointed that Lynch lost, being a fan, but I understand, obviously. Like I said, Natalya needed the win. Usos beat the New Day in a non-title match. And the big news to come out of SmackDown, John Cena took on Jinder Mahal. Baron Corbin interfered and then cashed in his Money in the Bank against Jinder Mahal. The even bigger news, Corbin lost. He was distracted by Cena, and Jinder rolled him up for the 1-2-3. So there you have it. One of the two SmackDown Money in the Bank briefcases, contracts, apparently WWE doesn't like the word briefcase anymore, is gone. All that's left is Carmella's. So I'm guessing Carmella's going to hold on to it for a little while. That'll do for the Blue Brand NXT this week. Some pretty good matches. Not a ton to write home about. Had the contract signing between Ember Moon and Asuka. And we had Roderick Strong versus Drew McIntyre in the main event. Very good match. I was pretty happy with this one, especially given the ramifications of if Strong was able to beat Drew McIntyre, he would get a match against Bobby Roode sometime after TakeOver Brooklyn 3, and if Roode was still a champion, it would be for the title. What makes this interesting is that Bobby Roode interfered. He shoved Roderick Strong off the top rope and then proceeded to beat down Drew McIntyre. There was no ring announcement, so it could be perceived as a no contest. But at the same time, the bell rang after Roode pushed Strong off the top rope, but before Roode laid a hand on Drew McIntyre. So technically speaking, Roderick Strong should have won by disqualification. And if that's the case, then Strong should be getting his match against Roode. But as I said, there was no ring announcement, so it's tough to gauge where exactly they're going to go here. Time will tell. But speaking of NXT, we're going to get to those TakeOver Brooklyn 3 predictions right after this break.
Hey, it's at Adam Conta.
And at Matthew Sugrum.
We do the Wrasslun Show podcast.
And it is tons of fun.
What happened on Raw this week? What went down on SmackDown? We're going to tell you what we think.
Who's going to win the big match at the upcoming pay-per-view? Do they still call them pay-per-views?
We run the gamut. Everything from Cuban hotel guys to bloodthirsty Canadians. My wife just texted, I'm going to cut someone.
Case in point, bloodthirsty Canadians.
It's the Wrasslun Show podcast.
Streaming now on the Wrasslun Show Network.
An impressive card as usual for TakeOver. It's not really surprising, especially since they usually keep the TakeOvers to about 5 matches. Given the talent pool in that roster, it's not that hard to have 5 excellent matches. First off, we got Johnny Gargano taking on Andrade Cien Almas with the mysterious Zelina Vega in his corner. This one seems like a lock to me. Johnny Wrestling's going to pull off the victory here, if you ask me. The only way I could see Andrade getting the win is if Tommaso Ciampa comes back and costs Gargano the match. I'm not sure if Ciampa's knee is healed yet, or if he's still going to be out for a little while longer. So I'm saying Gargano. Still a possibility of it going the other way, but I'm going to say Gargano for the win. Aleister Black versus Hideo Itami. This one's one I'm very excited about. This is probably going to be the most physical and hard-hitting match of the night. It's in the early stages of Itami's heel turn, yet I don't see Black not coming out on top in this one. The dude's on fire. He's extremely over. He has great matches on a consistent basis, And from what I hear, his merch is the hottest selling of anything in NXT right now. Basically, as soon as they get it on the shelves, it's gone. So, yeah, I'm going to say Aleister Black for the win there. Now on to the championships of NXT. Start with the tag team championships. The Authors of Pain are taking on Sanity. I thought this one might be a lock for the champs to retain, but now that Sanity is back to full strength with Eric Young returning, I'm starting to have my doubts a little bit. I'd still like to see the Authors of Pain retain here. I like Sanity and everything, but I don't think the Authors of Pain are the ones for Sanity to take the titles from. Maybe down the line, after someone takes the titles from the AOP, then maybe Sanity could take it from them. Personally, my vote is for Danny Burch and Oney Lorcan. Once they get through this series of matches they're having, they could pull a Sheamus and Cesaro and start teaming up, and then maybe they take the titles from the Authors of Pain. But that's just a little armchair booking from me. So I'm going to say the champs retain there. The NXT Women's Championship, Asuka defending her title against Ember Moon. And yeah, I'm going to say it's finally going to happen. Asuka's finally going to lose the title. I think they've been preparing us for this for several months now. I think it was probably supposed to happen sooner than this, but because Ember got injured, they had to put it off. I don't know if it was going to happen in the Fatal 4-Way or not. That was my speculation. But because Ember Moon was injured, she never got to participate. And the way they've booked this, I think this is it. Ember's shown a lot of intensity over the last few weeks. Like, she's ready for this. They've really pushed that the Eclipse is a vicious move that, if it gets hit, could take Asuka out. So, I'm putting all my chips on Ember Moon here. I think she's finally going to dethrone Asuka. And lastly, the NXT Championship, the glorious one, Bobby Roode, taking on the Scottish fire-breathing dragon himself, Drew McIntyre. Listen to the Edge and Christian podcast to figure out where that nickname came from. This one's tough for me, especially with what's been going on with Roderick Strong. Prior to watching NXT this week, I was saying, yeah, McIntyre's going to do it. And I still think he might. But now, with everything with Strong, part of me is not sure. Here's what I'm thinking, and this isn't necessarily going to be the case, but I would not be surprised if Roderick Strong cost Roode the title here. Strong has already said that this thing between he and Bobby Roode isn't about the championship. It's about respect and it's about a fight. But he said it's not about the championship. So if that's the case, he might try to hit Roode where it's really going to hurt and cost him the title. That being said, what will that do for Drew McIntyre if he winds up needing help to win the title? Either way, whether Strong interferes or not, I'm going to say McIntyre is going to take the title. He said when he came to NXT right after WrestleMania, or actually I guess right before WrestleMania, that he was here for one thing and one thing only, and that was the NXT Championship. He finally has his shot. If he doesn't win it here, he's got to win it at his next opportunity. Roode's had it for a while, and I'm not saying Roode can't get it back. Nakamura and Samoa Joe proved that you can't have multi-time NXT champions. It's not necessarily as cookie cutter as win the championship, lose the championship, move on to main roster, as it was in the past. So yeah, I'm going to say Bobby Roode loses the title to Drew McIntyre, and then he goes on to feud with Roderick Strong without the championship in what will probably be a fantastic feud, and I look forward to that. That is your NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 3 predictions. We're going to move on to SummerSlam, which is a 13-match card right after this.
Hey, it's at Matthew Sucrum here to tell you about the Wrasslun Show podcast. You've
got nothing. However, we have till 5 every Friday in the Wrasslun Show network. This week we're counting down on...
Do we have a problem?
Yeah, Smarky Smark here is trying to take over this commercial.
Did someone say takeover? Because on the Go Home spot, I cover all the goings on in NXT, including takeovers, as well as everything else happening in WWE and beyond.
Where did you come from, Jeff?
I just drove in.
Well, take the next exit, would you? This is my commercial.
You mean our commercial?
Cut. Try it again. I don't want this commercial to end up like some of the more regrettable movies I review on Ropes to Reels. I want it to end up like one of the good movies I review on Ropes to Reels.
Nobody asked you, Drew.
Oh, you want to go, Sparky Plug?
When you host the Wrasslun Show, the Go Home Spot, Ropes to Reels, and We Have Till 5 podcasts all on one network, spontaneous host battle royals just kind of happen. The Wrasslun Show Network, where everything is wrestling and wrestling is everything.
Okay, SummerSlam. The biggest party of the summer. Not to be confused with Jeremy Pivens' Summerfest. Alright, we'll start off with the kickoff matches. There are 3 of them. The Hardy Boys and Jason Jordan are taking on The Miz and The Miztourage. And I have no idea why this match is even taking place. They had this match on Raw. The Hardys and Jordan won the match. So I don't know why we're having a rematch. If Miz and The Miztourage went over on Raw and cheated, I could understand the rematch. If the Hardys and Jordan won, and then The Miz and Miztourage attacked them after the match, I could understand having a rematch. But this is just to put the match on the card. This is really telling of, I don't think this was in the cards initially. I think it was probably supposed to be Miz versus Jordan and the Hardys versus the Revival, or possibly in a 3-way tag match against the Revival and the Club. But with the Revival getting injured again, plans had to be shifted, and the team I feel bad for is the Club, because they're not on the card at all. Whatever, I'll say the baby faces go over again. I don't really care. Another kickoff match, rematch for the Cruiserweight Championship, Akira Tozawa taking on Neville. I like Neville. I've been sold on his heel run from day one. But I think it would really hurt Tozawa if he were to lose the title less than a week after he won it. With the run that Neville had, he's proved his mettle. I don't think he really needs the title back this quickly. And I'm sure he'll get it back eventually. But I don't think he needs it back this quickly. The thing that I'm kind of surprised with is that they had the championship change hands on Raw. I understand that you don't have titles change on Raw very often, so it's a nice surprise. But you don't have titles change hands on kickoff shows either. In fact, I don't know if a championship has ever changed hands on a kickoff show. So that would have been something too. Think of the buzz you would have heading into a pay-per-view if the championship changed hands in the kickoff. Now, it's entirely possible that that could happen here, but like I said, I think it would hurt Tozawa too much to lose the title less than a week after winning it. So I'm going to say Tozawa retains. In the third kickoff match, another championship match. I'm actually a little bit surprised this one's in the kickoff, but I guess when you have a show this big, somebody had to be. The Usos looking to regain their SmackDown Live Tag Team Championships from the New Day. Man, I love the Usos, but much like Tozawa, I feel like it's too early in the New Day's run for them to drop the titles again. I don't think they're going to have a run like they had previously. They're already the longest reigning tag team champions. And with this SmackDown Championship run, Kofi broke a record with, I think, most tag team championships won. I could be wrong. There's some sort of record that Kofi Kingston broke, though. So I'm going to say the New Day retains here. The Usos are going to give them a fight. But yeah, New Day is going to hold on to the tag team championships. Speaking of matches that I would have liked to have seen on the kickoff show, the Big Show taking on Big Cass with Enzo in a shark cage. I suppose with the whole shark cage thing, I can understand them not having this on the kickoff, but I kind of wish it was, so I could care less about it. Although, to be honest, I don't know if I could care less about this match. Big Cass is going to win. The booking leading up to this just reeks to high heaven of that. If Big Show were to win this match, I would be, is appalled the word I want? I don't know. I'd be extremely surprised if Big Show won this match. The entire booking up to this point has told us that Cass can not only beat the crap out of Big Show, but he can also swat away that annoying mosquito that is Enzo Amore as well. So now that Enzo's not even part of the equation, I don't really see Big Show coming out on top. One of the matches that I'm looking the most forward to, despite the fact that it also seems unnecessary, is Finn Balor versus Bray Wyatt. Their match on Raw was good, so I'm expecting this one to be that much better considering the much larger scale that is SummerSlam. A stage this big, I'm sure it'll be fantastic. Could be the sleeper hit of the show. Obviously, we're going to see the Demon. In fact, I'm trying to remember, I don't know if we've actually seen Finn Balor in the Demon makeup since last year's SummerSlam before he got injured. I could be wrong about that, but he only came back after WrestleMania, so this is the first Big Four pay-per-view that he's been a part of. And given the amount of time it takes to paint up his body, it's certainly not something that I think he's going to do every single pay-per-view. I think it's something he's probably going to reserve for the Big Four or really big matches. This obviously being one of them, especially after having that blood or whatever poured on him. He had said that Bray Wyatt has his demons. Well, he's about to see mine. So, yeah, we're obviously going to see a painted-up Finn Balor here, and he is most definitely going to win. This is possibly one of the biggest no-brainer matches of the SummerSlam card, in my opinion. Moving on to SmackDown and other wrestlers that I like, Rusev on the card taking on Randy Orton. This feud kind of sprung up sort of out of the blue, yet at the same time has kind of an organic feel to it. That being said, the only reason I'm looking forward to it is because it's Rusev, and I like him. I really hope he wins this match. And I don't know if he will, because unfortunately, I don't know how high the company is on Rusev anymore. I think I've brought this up in the past. Obviously, with his winning streak when he first came to the main roster, the company was high on him, but it seems like they've since soured a little bit. He was in the League of Nations for a while. That went nowhere. He was hurt for a while and just hasn't done anything. And then they had that whole thing where he kept saying he was demanding that Shane McMahon add him to Money in the Bank or give him a title match at Money in the Bank. And then that whole angle just disappeared. So, I don't know. So, it's entirely possible that Orton's going to win here, especially coming off of Orton losing the championship and then losing his rematch against Jinder Mahal. That being said, he won a non-title match against Jinder Mahal. I'm going with my heart on this one. I think Rusev needs to win more. Orton's a veteran, and Orton's at a stage where he needs to be putting newer talent over. And while Rusev's not, brand new, he's still going to be around longer than Randy Orton is, barring any kind of release or whatever. He's got more of his career left in him than Orton. So I'm going to say Rusev gets the victory here. Sticking with SmackDown, it's the Women's Championship. Natalya taking on Naomi. This one's got some potential to be good. Very good. Naomi is certainly no slouch in that ring. And Natalya is kind of the biggest veteran of the women's locker room right now, probably on both shows. She's her own little ring general in there, and she really knows what she's doing. I don't think Natty gets enough credit for her technique and her ability to just put on a good match. Like, she really knows psychology very well, and being a part of the Hart family, not surprising. But I don't think the company is done with Naomi yet, so I don't think Natalya is going to win the championship here. The question of, is Carmella going to cash in her Money in the Bank contract? That question's always going to be looming. But I think given how recently Baron Corbin cashed in his, I don't think she will. I think they'll hold off a little while. I mean, technically they have all the way to past WrestleMania. So there's still a long time to go before that contract will expire. So I think they can take their time and just let Carmella sit on that briefcase for a little bit. So I don't think she's going to cash in here. I think Naomi's going to retain. Sticking with the ladies, it's the Raw Women's Championship. Alexa Bliss defending against Sasha Banks. This is another one this is tough for me. Had it still been Bayley before she got injured, I was going to say that Bayley was going to regain the championship. But after Bayley got injured, and now that they've had to scramble and they have Sasha Banks taking on Alexa Bliss, I'm not so sure. Will they wait and until Bayley comes back and let her then take the title from Bliss? Kind of like they did with Ember Moon and Asuka. At least that's my speculation. Maybe? Again, I'm going to go with my heart here. But I don't know, because I like them both so much. I really like Bliss, too. Oh. Alright, you know what? I was going to go with Banks, but screw it. Alexa Bliss will retain. She may not win the match, but I'm going to say Alexa Bliss will retain. Not by count out again, because she did that last time. Possibly with some interference from Nia Jax to kind of further solidify that Team Rude between Jax and Bliss. Yeah, I'm going to say Bliss retains. Sticking with Raw Championships, as was kind of expected after the last couple of weeks, the newly on the same page Ambrose and Rollins are going after the Tag Team Championships from Sheamus and Cesaro. And this one really kind of came out of left field. I don't know where this came from, because I kind of suspected that we were going to have the Club, the Hardys, and the Revival vie for that top spot, or possibly even go to a four corners tag match. But then that all kind of fizzled, and then injuries in Revival, and then this happened. So I don't know if this was kind of a last minute put together thing, but this is going to go one of two ways, in my opinion. Obviously, either Ambrose and Rollins are going to win the titles or they're not. So I guess it's obvious it's going to go one of two ways. But I'm going to say either Rollins and Ambrose will win the titles, or Ambrose is going to turn on Rollins and turn heel. I think that would be an interesting swerve after the last month of Ambrose saying he doesn't trust Rollins, to then, after they're on the same page, to then turn on turn on Rollins. I think that would be interesting. Ambrose is the only, oh no, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say Ambrose was the only one. Ambrose hasn't had a heel run since he was in the Shield. I guess the only Shield member that's had a heel run technically post-Shield was Rollins. So it'd be interesting if Ambrose did that. That being said, I wouldn't be surprised if they had them win the Tag Team Championships either. I'm so bad at predictions sometimes. Oh, can't everybody win? No, they can't. But I'm going to say we're going to have new tag team champions. Rollins and Ambrose will take the titles. And if Ambrose turns on Rollins, I'll be kicking myself for not actually using that as my prediction. Championships galore. Back to the SmackDown side. United States Championship on the line. AJ Styles defending against Kevin Owens with Shane McMahon as the special referee. I smell a swerve here. I don't know why else Shane would be involved. I don't know if Shane is going to turn heel here. I don't know if there's going to be some sort of strange circumstances. Who knows? Maybe AJ Styles will retain, but there'll be some sort of shenanigans like there has been with the last couple of matches with Owens. And then we're heading towards an Owens-Shane McMahon feud, considering they love having Shane get in the ring, although it does get ratings, so I guess I can understand the reasoning for it. But he's not supposed to be an actual worker, so I don't necessarily agree with it. I just understand why. This one's tough to call too, because you can't even go by merch, because both Styles and Owens have had USA-themed t-shirts made. I don't know. I feel like there wouldn't be a guest referee without a reason, so I'm going to say Owens regains the U.S. Championship. John Cena taking on Baron Corbin. You would think he would be putting over the younger guy, much like he did with Shinsuke Nakamura. But given that Corbin just lost the Money in the Bank contract, it's hard to say. There's been a lot of speculation that Corbin's in the doghouse, and that could be part of why he lost the contract. I'm going to say Cena goes over here. WWE Championship, Jinder Mahal taking on Shinsuke Nakamura. This one's actually one of the hardest ones for me to call, to be honest. It might seem easy for some. And for a long time, I really was leaning towards Nakamura taking the title. And still kind of am. But at the same time, since Jinder Mahal won the championship, there's been so many comparisons to him and JBL, many of which made by me. And I remember JBL's title run so many times. It was like, oh, well, he's going to lose it here. And he didn't. He found a way to get out. JBL had a long title run because he managed to squeak out every single time. So part of me is really wondering if that's the case here as well. That being said, though, if Shinsuke Nakamura doesn't take the title here, where does he go? He was so hot coming out of NXT, and then was suddenly put in these tiny feuds with Dolph Ziggler and Baron Corbin. By comparison, you look at someone like Finn Balor, who was one of the most popular champions in NXT. He came to the main roster and was put almost immediately into the Universal title picture. Now, he got injured, and then once he came back, he had some minor feuds as he started to get back to that point, and he's still not back in the title picture yet, but he's close. I consider this feud with Bray Wyatt to be the precursor to him getting up there in the title hunt, and I wouldn't be surprised if Balor wound up winning the Royal Rumble in 2018. But I'm getting far ahead of myself. I'm talking Jinder Mahal and Shinsuke Nakamura. Choosing with my heart, I'd be going with Nakamura. As much as I do like Jinder as champion, I'd like to see Nakamura taste gold at some point. But after that botched bump with Cena, and the fact that I guess backstage, I don't know if it's Vince or whatever brass, haven't been quite as impressed with Nakamura as they had hoped. So I don't know, maybe this is the do or die for Shinsuke. I hope he wins the title. Maybe he'll win by disqualification or count out, and the feud will keep going and he'll win down the line. I'm going to say that Nakamura is going to win. We're going to have a new champion. In case you haven't noticed, I don't give most of these predictions a ton of thought prior to actually recording this podcast. I think about the matches, but I don't really have a solid idea of who's going to win until I'm actually talking it through, other than the occasional one like Big Cass and the Hardys and Jordan and stuff like that. And finally, what I'm sure is going to be the main event of the show, the Fatal 4-Way for the Universal Championship, Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns versus Samoa Joe versus Braun Strowman. If Brock Lesnar loses the championship, he and Paul Heyman are leaving the WWE, which has me wondering if that's a bit of a swerve. If they say that, but Brock retains. Because now everybody, as soon as the whole, Brock Lesnar's going back to UFC news hit about a month ago, everybody has been chattering about who's going to take the title. Apparently backstage, Heyman has been lobbying for Joe to be the one to take the championship. But what if Lesnar retains? The more I thought about that idea, the more it kind of made sense to me. And now, instead of trying to choose between 3 guys of who's going to win the match, I'm back to choosing between 4. Especially with how they teased Lesnar and Strowman on Monday Night Raw this past week. They could go through this Fatal 4-Way. I'm sure the two would tangle a little bit, but what if Brock retained and didn't come back till, say, Survivor Series, where he had a one-on-one match with Strowman, and maybe Strowman beats him? That'd certainly be a way for Strowman to raise his stock in the company. While Lesnar and Heyman fairly consistently in this run have played the heels, Strowman's getting babyface reactions. While he's also still playing the heel, he's getting babyface pops all over the place from the audience. So it's certainly not out of the question for Strowman to take the championship. It's not out of the question for Samoa Joe to take the championship either, especially given the showing that he had against Lesnar at Great Balls of Fire. I had to think about that for a second. I can't believe I actually almost forgot the name of that pay-per-view. Wow. Personally, if I had to choose out of these 4, I'd want Samoa Joe to take it. I think he could have a good run with it. He could have some solid feuds with Roman Reigns. He could have some feuds with Strowman, although it wouldn't hurt for Strowman to back off a little bit because obviously they're grooming Strowman to be Universal Champion at some point. So it wouldn't hurt for them to back it off with him. Joe could feud with some other people, maybe Balor. Maybe Roman takes it from Joe down the line. Then Strowman could take it from Roman. And then maybe Balor wins the Royal Rumble and he takes it from Strowman at WrestleMania. I don't know if that would actually happen, and I'm not actually trying to armchair book that. I'm just speculating that if you get the title off of Brock Lesnar, there's a lot more opportunity and a lot more options to people becoming champion down the line, because there's a big difference between a part-timer who shows up to a pay-per-view every couple months and the occasional Raw to hype said pay-per-view, and someone who is there every week full-time. Now, that's not me trying to complain about part-timers. Lesnar's proved that despite being a part-timer, he is a huge monster draw, and he's a special attraction. I'm not complaining about his part-timer status. I'm just saying you have a lot more leeway and a lot more creative freedom with a championship when it's on a guy who's there week in and week out. I'm probably going to be wrong on this one, but again, I'm going to choose with my heart, and I'm going to say Samoa Joe is going to become the Universal Champion. It'll probably be Strowman. It might even be Lesnar. The funny thing is, I've hardly mentioned Roman Reigns. Not that I don't like him, but because I think he has the lowest chance of winning the title in this match. So there you have it. That's SummerSlam in a nutshell. Woo! Made it through the whole thing. And in perfect timing, too, because I am pulling into my driveway as we speak. And by we, I, of course, just mean myself, because I'm talking to myself, because that's what I do every week to entertain you. And I hope you were entertained. So what did you think of my predictions, both for TakeOver and SummerSlam? Am I onto something? Let me know on Twitter at the Go Home Spot. If you have any questions like Greg, let me know at the Go Home Spot. You can find all our shows on Twitter. We've got extra video content on YouTube. And of course, there's our Facebook page for the Wrasslun Show Network. Also, I meant to say this off the hop, so I apologize, but thoughts and prayers are with Ric Flair and his family. It's been a rough week. Rick going into the hospital for, I guess, what seemed like it was supposed to be a routine thing, and then all of a sudden having emergency surgery, medically induced coma. The last I had heard was that he was out of surgery and he was resting. So hopefully everything is well with the Nature Boy. But as I said, thoughts and prayers go out to him. So this has been the Go Home Spot. I'm Jeff DeHaan. Sometimes you go big, sometimes you go home.
This has been a presentation of the Wrasslun Show Network, where everything is wrestling and wrestling is everything.